Start over? Okay. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 9 of Unbreakable Mains challenge. We are very sorry for the delay. There was a slight technical issue, so it has been resolved. So as all of you know, we'll be discussing with population and associated issues, and also poverty and development issues. So here you have the 5 questions for the day. You can see the 5 questions. Now we have also linked the poverty and development issues for the day, okay? So when I looked into the population associated issued questions, none of the questions are of that quality, and also some of the questions was related to current affairs. So it doesn't have the probability of repeating, right? So I also thought of including the poverty and development issues into the day itself. Anyways, UPSC try to have this habit of throwing you even, some crazy questions or some irrelevant questions, right? So try to do it in this manner. Anyways, if you have not studied about poverty and development issues, you still try to attempt the question, because poverty is something that all of you have known, right? It's not something very new. So all of you can attempt the question. Now, these are the first 5 questions as I have said today. Now, before going to that, let me say some of the quotes related to poverty. Okay? So as you can see here, usually in society, as we have discussed in case of, we discussed about women, we discussed about the silent features, right? So in most of the cases, we used to go for quotes-based introductions or quote-based conclusions. Here also, we'll go for the same. So in case of poverty, in case of population, we don't have any quote as such. But then in case of poverty, what can you quote? You can quote Mahatma Gandhi. What did Mahatma Gandhi say? He said that poverty is the worst form of violence. This is one of the most important quotes by Mahatma Gandhi, which we usually use. Poverty is the worst form of violence. Second one, you can quote Nelson Mandela. Now, if a question comes in relation to governance, okay, if a question comes in relation to governance, you can quote these 2 quotes. The one said by Nelson Mandela and the other said by Mohammed Yunus, who is actually the Prime Minister of Bangladesh right now. So what can you quote? Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. Second one, poverty is unnecessary. It is artificial. It is a result of poor thinking and poor policies. In today's question, in one of the question, we actually discuss about why poverty still exists in India, despite many policies and implementations, right? So in that question, maybe you can quote this question by Mohammed Yunus. Poverty is unnecessary, it is artificial, and it is a result of poor thinking and poor policies. What did Kofi Annan say? He basically said that extreme poverty anywhere is a threat to human security everywhere. In case a question comes regarding poverty and communalism, or a question comes regarding poverty and crime, in case of any violence related question in relation to poverty, you can quote this person. Also, in case of Amartya Sen, what can you say? Poverty is not just lack of income, it is the deprivation of basic capabilities. Now, in case a question comes regarding relative depreciation, or let's say relative poverty, you can actually quote Amartya Sen as well. So these are some of the quotes. If you search Google, you'll receive endless quotes regarding poverty or the same. But then always try to quote some of the prominent persons like our freedom fighters or even the Secretary General of UN as such. Now, going to the 5 questions. So these are the 5 questions. You can pause the video, or else I have already forwarded in our Telegram group as well. So pause the video, mute me, and try to attempt these questions. Now, moving on to the first question. Moving on to the first question. So what should you write here? The first question basically asks you, discuss the main objectives of population education and point out the measures to achieve them in detail. Now here, the question doesn't ask you about the population alone, right? But then the question basically asks you about the population education. Now what will be the body parts here, or even the introduction? In the introduction, now what did I tell you earlier? In case if a question comes regarding communalism, regionalism, or let's say any other particular topic, if you don't have any other introductions, you can basically define what that term is. So in this question as well, if you don't find any other introduction related to population education, let's say you don't have any contemporary examples relating to population education. Okay, let's say recently the Assam government has introduced an NCERT syllabus with regard to population education. Now this is something that you can ask in the introduction, or you can say in the introduction, right? Let's say you don't have any contemporary relevance, or you don't find any interesting or any level 2 introduction. What can you do? You can provide the definition of population education here. You can provide the definition of population education. Now this will be your introduction. Now what about the body part? What does the question say? Discuss the main objectives of population education. So what is going to be our first body part? First body part would be the objectives of population education. Objectives of population education. What about the second body part? Point out the measures to achieve them in detail. Now the second body part would be the measures in order to achieve population education. Now understand that here you have to mention those measures not to reduce the population. Okay, you have to mention those measures which helps you to make people aware about the population education. Okay, so you can quote the marketing campaigns by Government of India such as Hum Do Hamare Do. You can mention about education to women about contraceptives. You can mention about including chapters in NCERTs. So you have to basically point out the measures so that the government can promote the idea of population education. What about the first body part? In the first body part, you have to mention the objectives of population education. Okay, now what are the objectives of population education? It's basically to educate people regarding the benefits of having less number of children, education regarding contraceptives, educating regarding the rights of the child, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is a 50-marker question. For the first body part, you have to write 7 to 8 points. Also for the second body part also, you have to write 7 to 8 points, making a cumulative of 15 to 16 points. Okay, also try to conclude by saying population education is still needed in states such as Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, where the TFR is still above 2.1 or even more than 3%, more than 3. Okay. Now, what about the second question? Despite the implementations of various programs for eradication of poverty by the Government of India, poverty is still existing. So basically, what does the question say? Even though we have implemented several policies such as Manrega, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, we have different policies out there like midday meal scheme. We have all these policies. Despite that, poverty is still existing in India. Now, in the introduction, what should you say? You should actually say that, or you should substantiate this point, right? You should be substantiating this point, saying that poverty still exists in India. So in the introduction, you have to say a point which says poverty exists in India. Now, what can you provide? You can provide a UN report, or you can provide a multi-dimensional poverty index. Now, according to the report, you can say that more than, try to always provide a fact here, okay? So here, it needs a substantiation. or you can say that according to Niti Aayog report, more than 21% of the people are still in poverty, or you can say that according to multidimensional poverty index, more than 20% of the population is still poor in India. Recently, there was a report, right? Recently, there was a multidimensional poverty index report saying that India have basically removed such and such people from the poverty line. So in that same report as well, it says how many numbers of people are still in poverty in India. So you can quote that report as well. So in the introduction, try to quote a report. Now, what about the body part? Despite the implementations of various programs of eradication of poverty, poverty still exists in India. So in the introduction, we have mentioned the report saying that poverty is still existing in India. Now, first body part would be, you need to mention the various programs implemented by the government, right? So you can mention the various programs implemented, such as just mention the names: Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri something other schemes, midday meal scheme, food for work scheme. You can mention all the different schemes. Also, there is another method to write this question, okay? Even in the introduction, you can actually mention all these schemes. Despite implementing many schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Sich Yojana, Mandrega, poverty is still existing in India. According to the latest report, more than 21% of the people are still in poverty in India. Okay, you can even quote the schemes in the introduction as well. Or else you can just quote the report here, and then for the first body part, you mention all the various programs implemented by the government. Now, what is the main body part here? The main body part, or the second body part, as you can say, you need to mention why, despite the implementation of various programs, poverty still exists in India. So what are the issues? You can mention about the social issues. Now try to go for a pestle approach here, or a pies approach here. Okay. So you can mention the political points, social points, economical points, technological points, legal points, or you can go for political points, institutional points, economical points, and also social points. Now, what can you write in the political points? You can mention about the corruption. You can mention about vote bank politics. You can mention about no long-term strategy. You can mention about freebies. All these points you can mention. What about the social points? You can mention long-term discrimination, such as caste and tribal-based long-term discriminations. You can mention about rural people. You can mention about women, how they are still poor. You can mention about feminization of women. You can mention about the lack of poverty for women. You can mention about the low literacy value. You can mention about the low health and everything. Even you can mention about high rate of out-of-pocket expenditure. In this question, you must try to provide n number of points, okay? This is a main body part. You can write more than 10 points here, because this is a very simple question. All of us know why poverty still exists in India, right? Now, second one, what are the economic points? You must mention in relation to despite implementation of policies, okay? Not the very general points such as the British rule. You don't need to quote the historical points here, because why? The question is asking, despite the implementation of various policies, why is poverty existing in India? So go for the implementation part, not the historical part of the question, okay? So here we have mentioned that frisbees is related to policies, corruption is related to policies, vote bank is related to policies, long-term strategy is related to policies, and also high pocket expenditure. These are points which you can avoid, but then if you still like providing it, you can provide, that's it. Now, what are the economic points? First one, leakages. You can mention the Niti Aayog report, or even actually Rajiv Gandhi have once said, right? Once said this thing, right? If the government of India actually provides 1 rupee to the poor, only 21 paisa reaches the poor. So you can mention the leakages. You can mention all these points. Okay. In terms of technology, also, you can mention that in India there is digital divide. Therefore, none of the policies actually reach the poor. You can mention about leaving them, such as there have been several reports such as many of the people have been excluded from the PDS and also other schemes because of their Aadhaar based biometric verification. Most of the schemes have now to be applied through online, so most of the literate people are not able to apply online. So you need to write points on the basis of implementation. Okay, now we have now set about the challenges, right? So also, when you always write about the challenges, you need to mention a way forward, right? So if you have space, try to write a way forward here in a very limited manner, or else even in the conclusion, you try to provide something. Also, for the notes for the conclusion, you can provide something related to poverty here, or a code-based poverty question, poverty statement, or else you can write STG goal 2, STG goal 1, no poverty. Okay, so try to introduce STG goal, try to introduce any of the freedom fighters code, or you can write government's goal of Amrit Kal. Amrit Kal is also a good code that you can finish for this question. Okay, so how do you attempt? First, in the introduction, you can either substantiate by saying a fact, such as a report, or either you can mention, despite implementation of several policies such and such and such, poverty is still existing in India, according 31% according to latest report. You can mention the policies as well as the report in the same introduction. Then go for why poverty exists in India. Mention the political factors, social factors, economic factors, technological factors, even the institutional factors you can mention. Then you go for the way forward. Then you conclude by saying that STG goal, Amarkal, or any other government of India code, or any of the freedom fighters who have said about the same. Now, in relation to the third question, critically examine. Now, this is a good question. Okay, critically examine whether growing population is the cause of poverty, or poverty is the main cause of population increase in India. Critically examine whether growing population is the main cause of poverty, or poverty is the cause of main population here. Now, you don't have to mention that growing population is the main cause, or growing population growth is the main cause, or poverty is the main growth of population in the body part. Okay, you just need to verify that in the conclusion. In the conclusion, maybe you can state a stand, you can take a stand saying that poverty is the main reason for population growth, as seen in the states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, which have actually reduced poverty, thereby leading to population decrease as well. You know, the South Indian states have a TFR less than 2, right? Now, why is mostly the South Indian states which have reduced in TFR? It's because the poverty level is also very less in the South Indian states. So there you can substantiate, because the poverty is down, the TFR level has come down as well. So you try to make your statement in the conclusion. You don't provide it in the introduction or even the body part. Now here also, or poverty is the main cause of population increase in India. Now here you have to substantiate the population increase as well in the introduction, right? Now how can you substantiate that? You can say that India have recently overtaken China as the most populous nation. Then you try to link it with poverty and population. Okay, firstly you try to mention that there is population increase in India, then you try to link it with poverty and population. Now, what is going to be a first body part? The first body part can be population is the cause of poverty. So first body part would be population is the cause of poverty. Population is the cause of poverty, and you try to point out a number of points here. Then the second body part would be no, poverty is the main cause of population. I'll be saying the points later, okay, since I'll be showing the model answer, so I don't have to elaborate the same. Poverty is the main cause of population, and then you substantiate your point by saying a relevant fact or something, such as in that I said in case of the South Indian states. Now that is how you should conclude this question as well. Moving on to the fourth question. COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated class inequalities and poverty in India. Comment. So COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated class inequalities and poverty in India. Comment. Now ask yourself, does this comment being the directive here have any relation to the question? Can you say that COVID-19 pandemic has not accelerated inequalities or COVID-19 pandemic has not accelerated poverty in India? No, you cannot say that, right? So therefore, the directive comment here doesn't have any relation. Even if it was elaborate or even anything else, it doesn't make much of a difference. Now, how do you introduce this question? You can state any of the report out there. Let's say PEW report, UNEP report, UN report, UNDP report, saying that the COVID-19 pandemic have led to inequalities and poverty in India, or even the Niti Aayog report. There are n number of reports stating the same, that the poverty has been increased or the class inequalities have increased due to COVID-19 pandemic. So try to quote any of the international organizations out there. Now, what is the first body part? The question has given how it has accelerated class-based inequalities, and the second one, how it has accelerated poverty in India. So first you need to mention how COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated class inequalities. Now, what does class inequalities mean? Class inequalities basically means that you try to think socially, such as between rich and poor, between rural and urban, and you try to generate points among them. Let's say one of the first class-based inequalities can be access to education. Access to education can be a class-based inequality, right? So here, the rich got access to education, wherein the poor people who did not access to modern technology such as mobile phones and any other did not have access to education. So this actually aggravated the digital inequality out there. So try to generate different points in this manner. One can be digital-based inequalities. You try to generate points in this manner. Now, what about poverty in India? This is fairly a simple question, because simple body part, because you can write n number of points here, right? You can mention the COVID-19 pandemic has led to employment, has led to reverse migration, has led to shutting down of several shops, which has again led to unemployment, have increased the debt, which have again led to them to poverty, which have increased the health expenditure, which have again made them poor. So you try to generate all these points here. And also, how can you conclude? You can say that the government of India need to take such and such measures in order to remove poverty and achieve the goal of SDG 1, no poverty. Also, you can mention SDG goal 10, which is reducing inequalities. Try to mention SDG goal 10 as well here. Okay. And what about the last question? An essential condition to eradicate poverty is to liberate the poor from the deprivation. Substantiate the statement with suitable examples. Now, this is also a 10-marker question. What does the question basically ask you? An essential condition to eradicate poverty is to liberate the poor from deprivation. Now, what are the different kinds of deprivation? Deprivation can be several things. You try to mention of social deprivation, political deprivation, economical deprivation, technological deprivation, and all the other factors. Now, what can be the social deprivation? Always in case of poverty question, try to use the pestle approach, okay? So, social deprivation can be health, can be housing, can be education. Only by solving these problems can we eradicate poverty in India, right? Now, political can be providing them political power, such as empowering Panchayat, providing them reservations such as SC and STs. Now, what about economical? Economical can be employment opportunities, skill development, and all the other factors. Technological deprivation can be solved, can be the digital divide. Also, you also provide the solution to the same, okay? So you tell what is the deprivation that they are facing, and also on the same point, you provide the solution to it. Let's say we talked about health. Health in rural India is very poor, such as say any fact regarding the same. So in case of health, you say that only 31% of the hospitals is situated in rural areas. Now, what can be the solution there? You can say the government needs to construct more medical colleges, or the government needs to provide free pension schemes, or the government needs to expand Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Now, what about health, education? Only this much percentage of Indians is literate in rural areas. Now, what can be the solution? Expansion of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, expansion of PM Sri schools, expansion of education in aspirational schools, aspirational districts. So this is a way you need to provide the solution to the same. So everyone, we have already discussed the 5 questions. Now we are going to discuss the model answers, not exactly the model answers, almost good answers written by toppers out there. So do pause the video. You can write it, and after you share me the same answer by 4 p.m. and I'll also provide the model answer key of day 8. Okay, last day I haven't able to provide the model answer, but then I'll provide it today. Sorry for that. So first one, discuss the main objectives of population education and point out the measures to achieve them in detail. Now what can you write here? First one, in the introduction, you try to mention what is population education. If you don't have any contemporary point, if you have a contemporary point, you can mention the Assam government has recently introduced population education as part of their curriculum. If you don't have any such point, the population education is a form of education that aims to increase awareness and understanding of population related to population growth, family planning, and reproductive health. This is a basic definition of population education. What is the second body part? First body part, the main objectives of population education. You can mention awareness generation, educating the people, helpful in decision making, responsible and informed decision making. You can mention fostering responsibilities and consumption patterns. You can mention all these things. Now, how do you achieve these objectives? How do you make sure that the population education reaches all the poor or even the downtrodden? Population policy of 1950s. India was the first nation in the world to come up with the population policy in 1952. You can mention here. National Family Planning Program is there to reduce the TFRs. Steps to encourage contraceptives through social awareness campaigns such as Hum Do Hamare Do. Now, this is something that you can always provide in case when population question is asked. Okay, you can mention Hum Do Hamare Do. Okay, हम दो हमारे दो, हम दो हमारे दो. Utilizing ASHA workers to provide contraceptives is a good topic. Social curriculum can be included in NCRTs. You can say that the government can use mass media communication such as education, advertisement in newspapers. The government can do anything, right? National Family Health Survey. So what can you say? You need to say that the government need to promote population education, especially in aspirational districts or BIMARU states, to reduce the TFR levels from more than 3 to 2.1. Something you can say. Okay. Measures to achieve population control, use of NCRTs and state school syllabus, mass awareness campaigns, TV advertisements, Hum Do Hamare Do, Mission Parivar is also good. Empowering women such as Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Kasturi Gandhi, Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas, promoting adoption. Adoption is also a good thing. Okay. Now, second question. Despite the implementation of various programs for eradication of poverty still exists in India. First, try to mention a report regarding the same. So, the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index states that India has the highest number of poor people in the world globally, around 28%. Second one, programs for the eradication of Government of India. Either you can write in this manner also, okay? You can mention the programs here in the introduction as well. Despite implementation of several programs such as this and this, according to the latest report, more than 21% of the people is still below the poverty line. So you can mention some of the Government of India programs. Now, do not mention 10 programs, okay? You just need to mention 5 to 6 points. We don't take too much space for that. Now, the reasons for poverty existing in India. First one, no, it's better to write in social points, political points, economic points, technological points, okay? Rather than just writing all the points in a disorganized manner, try to provide the social, political, environmental, technological, institutional approach. So here the topper has written high levels of corruption, lack of maintenance of data efficiency, inclusion, exclusion errors. The one-size-fits-all approach does not address the local specific problems. This is a good point. Structural transformation, huge population explosion, social structure, climate factors not required, slow growth of infrastructure not required. You can avoid all these points. So what can you include? A right kind of introduction would be, a level 2 kind of introduction would be, India has made significant strides in poverty alleviation. India has made significant strides in poverty alleviation through landmark programs such as Manrega, PMGA, NFSA, Kareem Garemula Yojana. Yet, as per Niti Aayog's multidimensional poverty index, 14% of population still lives below poverty line. Now, this is the better method. You can link the existing policies and also with the introduction. Now, what are the social factors? You can mention about the caste and gender-based discriminations still existing, low awareness and social backwardness about the Government of India schemes, population explosion also you can mention. In terms of political factors, you can mention populist policies over long-term planning, such as Jayalalitha giving these, Delhi government giving free units of electricity. You have all these freebies, right? Lack of political will, corruption, center-state coordination failures. You can mention different schemes regarding the same. Economic factors, jobless growth, informal economy you can avoid. Regional imbalances is a good point, such as BIMARU states. Institutional factors, poor implementation of schemes, weak local self-governments, inadequate evaluation and feedback mechanism. So mostly try to focus on the implementation, or mostly try to focus on the schemes rather than providing very general factors, very general questions, general points. Technological divide, exclusion errors, biometric failures, digital divide, lack of technological innovation, underutilization of data. And how can you conclude that? You can mention SDG 1, no poverty, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. And also Amartya Sen is something we can quote here. The development must be more concerned with enhancing the lives we lead and the freedom we enjoy. You can also mention about Amartya Sen here. Now coming on to the third question, critically examine whether growing population is the cause of poverty or whether poverty is the main cause of population. Now, As I said, you can provide an introduction here which mentions the population increase. So what have I provided? Recently, India has overtaken China to become the most populous country in the world. India's population and poverty are deeply interconnected. While it is often argued that rapid population growth leads to poverty due to strain and resources, others contend that poverty in itself perpetuates high population growth. Now, this is a very big introduction. I know you can't write the whole thing, but then try to include the population increase and the relation between poverty and population growth. Now, first point, first body part, how growing population leads to poverty in India. What can you write? You can mention about the social, political, economic points. You can write anything, but then here it's better to avoid the pies or pestle approach, okay? Because technological points are not there, political points are not there, social points are okay, social points are there, legal points are not there, so better to avoid the pestle approach, and you can write it directly. So you can mention about the strain on natural and economic resources, increased pressure on land, water and food energy leading to degradation, unemployment and underemployment leads to high employment and informal sectors, disguised employment in basically agriculture sectors, pressure on public services such as urban slums in Delhi and Mumbai, decline in per capita income, rural land fragmentation. This is one of the most important thing, right? The farmers basically have more kids because they believe that they will have more hands in the future, saying that there will be more people to do cultivation. But then this actually leads to rural fragmentation, rising urban poverty, increased dependency ratio because of the number of children they have to basically sustain. And how poverty leads to population growth? Poverty leads to population growth. Basically, they think that children are the economic assets, so they tend to have more children. The lack of access to education, meaning that they do not educate their girls, leading to early child marriages, which actually leads to more number of children or repeated pregnancies. High infant and child mortality ratio. The poor access to healthcare leads to families to have more number of children. Why do families have more number of children? Because they believe that if they have 10 children, at least 5 or 6 will come into adulthood, right? So that point you can add. Lack of awareness and family planning, because poverty, in case of poverty, they also would have they would not have access to education. Therefore, poverty leads to lack of awareness and family planning and lack of education as well. Gender inequality is also there in case of poor families. Women in poverty-stricken households often lack decision-making power. They don't have decision-making power regarding their body and pregnancy. No pension and social security. So that is also one of the reasons why people tend to have more children, because they know that someone will take care of them. If they had good pension and social security schemes, they wouldn't have more children. So these are the points that you could have right. Then, as seen in states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, where education and health investments are strong, both poverty and fertility rates have declined. This affirms that population stabilization is a result of development and not a precondition. So you can substantiate that poverty is the reason why population is an increase in India. What about the fourth question? This is very simple. We'll just go through it. COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the class inequalities and poverty in India. So first one, you try to mention any of the report. The topper here have mentioned the Oxfam report here. As you can see here, the Oxfam report, Indian billionaires increased their wealth by 35%, driving the lockdown, during the lockdown, aggravating the already unequal imbalances between the rich and the poor. Now here the topper, what did he do? He have basically written in the same point, same body part, he have mentioned the class inequalities and poverty in the same manner or in the same body part. Now you can actually differentiate them, okay? You can actually differentiate them and write it in two body parts. Now what can you write? The class-based inequality can be written in case of digital divide. Digital divide is an inequality, right? Disproportion in access to healthcare, this is an inequality. Unequal consumption trends is an inequality. K-shaped economic recovery. You know, all these rich people, they have recovered very fast, but then the MSMEs have not recovered. They had a K-shaped recovery. This is a class inequality. Job security. most of the informal people actually lost their jobs rather than the formal people. So this actually leads to class-based inequality, unequal access to relief measures. So you try to mention in two different body parts. Okay, first one, how it led to class inequalities, and the second one, lead to poverty. You can mention about the education inequality, because the private schools continued education, but then the poor people who were studying in government schools, they did not have access to digital information, digital tabs, digital mobile phones. So then they dropped out of schools. Now, how poverty led to increase? So how COVID-19 increased poverty in India? It's very simple thing. All of you know, right? Massive job losses, reverse migration crisis, collapse of small businesses, rise in debt and asset liquidation, foreign healthcare access, increase in child labor. You can basically write all of these points. Okay, so when you try to conclude, by saying SDG no poverty, and also mention SDG 10 reduced inequalities. Okay, now dealing with the last question. An essential condition to eradicate poverty is to liberate the poor from deprivation. You have to mention all the deprivation out there. Substantiate by saying with suitable examples. So mention all the deprivation that women is facing. The poor people are facing. You can mention the education deprivation. Without access to quality education, the poor remain trapped in low-skill jobs. And you also mention the solution to the same. Midday meal scheme, right to education, healthcare deprivation, high out-of-pocket medical expenses can push families into chronic poverty. You provide the solution to the same, saying that Ayushman Bharat. Gender-based discrimination, women face compounded poverty due to patriarchy, unpaid care, and wage wages. You can mention the Kudumbashree schemes in Kerala. Nutrition deprivation, social and class-based exclusion, digital and information deprivation, housing and sanitation deprivation, skill, financial, legal deprivation. So you basically, what do? You provide the deprivation, and also you try to provide the solution to the same in the same body part, or else you mention about all the deprivations and then you provide the way forward or how to tackle these deprivations. Now in the conclusion as well, I think I have written the same thing. You can provide SDG goal 1. Okay. Now in case of poverty, you usually provide SDG goal 1, Amarkal, or either any of the government, any of the freedom fighters, or any of the famous people out there. So this is what we usually do. Okay, so we have already discussed the 5 questions. So tomorrow we'll be dealing with globalization and also urbanization, its issues, solutions, the challenges, problems. So that will be our last day for society. After that, we will start the geography-based questions. So I hope all of you enjoyed the session. See you tomorrow at the same time, live at 11 a.m. focusing on globalization and also urbanization issues. So thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you.